I'm Doug MacKenzie.
And I'm John Ward.
And we're the co-hosts of the ABCs of IBC podcast.
Come join us as we share our unique perspective on the infinite banking concept as the creator, Nelson Nash, intended.
Welcome back.
Hey there, Doug. How are you?
John, I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm pretty good. I just told you that I'm just having a little bit of a donut, so yeah, that makes me happy for.
Yeah, you can't have a bad day if you're eating a donut. I don't think.
Yeah, I should have got a dozen. So
you might have a bad day at that point. Yeah, diminishing returns.
Yeah, very good. So, I hear this phrase banted around, and I tell you, maybe I'm, grumpy when I don't have a donut. And I hear people talk about, I got to see my accountant, I got to do my taxes today, and I can feel the stress in their voices. And then I hear people say, like, we're just finishing up with tax season. Geez, you're not an accountant, you're a business owner, or you're just an individual family. And this idea that the taxes is a season, like, well, this is a season that seems to last all year long.
Right.
Because people are, it's on their minds, even if it isn't time to file. It's, it doesn't matter if they just filed, they're thinking about what they, oh, that cost me this year, or, hey, I'm going to get a check, at some point, or, even talking to prospects, they'll talk about, I usually get money back. And then next year you talk to them, I don't even know I'm going to get any money back now. And like, it's just this tax man is always relevant. I mean, it's always in people's minds anyways. So.
Yeah. And there's everything you do throughout the year has ramifications regarding that, if you're a business owner, you have to be making quarterly estimated tax payments, or you pay a penalty at the end of the year. And if you're too far off, you pay a penalty. If you sell anything for a gain, you got to think about, paying money for that at the end of the year, especially if it's anything significant. But yes, I've probably talked quite a bit about this with people in my own life recently. Same thing, just talking about how they're stressed out trying to get everything together for when's the deadline next week.
Yeah, I guess so. It's the middle. Yeah, I don't even know.
April,
It used to always be the 15th, but now it
looks like it's April 17th.
Yeah, there you go. It's always moving around a little bit. We're insurance agents, at the core of what we do, or the base of what we do, right? We build everything off with the infinite banking concept off of being life insurance agents, but there's regulations and there's all kinds of stuff that we have to be careful about and say, this is not fine. We're not financial advisors, even though we are providing direction, advice, regardless of whether you want to say we're a traditional or, a certified financial planner or all these different acronyms. We do provide that kind of help. And, many times on, written things, you have to have a disclaimer, this is not tax advice. But this is John Ward talking. This is not you talking, Doug. So I'm not getting you in trouble if, just because you're here with me. But I'll say, I have some tax advice. And it's probably could end this little concept of a topic right now. I mean, you might want to say some things, but that is, pay taxes on the seed of your savings, investments, whatever you want to call them. That is my advice. My
Mm.
advice is that you want to pay now, not later. And Doug, do you have you ever come across, and maybe we brought this up, and we've had so many episodes now, and I repeat myself many times, but there was these old commercials for a oil filter called Fram oil filters, and
I
it was
definitely have not talked with you about that one.
okay. Are you familiar with that commercial?
I am not.
Okay, so I think it was in, let's just say it was somewhere in the 70s, maybe later 70s, and it was this kind of gruff, um, you know, transmission guy that they had, uh, and it basically was saying, "Pay me now or pay me later. Pay me now for this cheap, relatively affordable uh, oil filter." Change your oil filter was the idea. Obviously, they're trying to sell something. They're trying to sell these filters, but it was really catchy. It was pay me now or pay me later, meaning if you don't keep replacing these oil filters, well, then you're going to cause problems for your transmission and you're going to pay me later, but you're going to pay me a much bigger chunk, right?
Mm.
And if we could just get people to understand that concept about taxes, about their federal income tax, and we're not saying that tax rates are going to go up. Many of us believe, and you and I probably believe that over the long haul, taxes or tax brackets will end up making you pay a bigger percentage of your income in taxes. Um, so
Well, I
whether
think that's
that's
especially true. I think I can fairly say that most people listening to this, or most people that are implementing the infinite banking concept, have a higher than average income. Would you say that that's correct, John?
well, yeah. First of all, because yes, but I would say it's because we work with people mostly in the Northeast, and
Yep.
the Northeast is one of those regions of the country that has a fair amount of affluence, right? So
Yeah,
in,
absolutely. But
in general,
you typically someone that's living close to poverty level is not going to be able to potentially implement this. Now, there's nothing saying that you couldn't. It would actually work phenomenally well for someone in that situation. But my point to what you were saying is that I also think that tax rates for those that are a little bit higher on the income side are going to get worse, especially.
yeah. And so
So,
what I
anyways, I
was
didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
no, no, it's good. No, but I before I forget what I'm saying is that even if rates don't go up, let's just say they
Hmm.
stay the same, which is, I think, a fair bet that they're going to not go lower. But let's say they stay the same. It means that what you're doing is kicking that can down the road. You're deferring the paying of your taxes. And if, you know, the goal is to create a big pile of money that you have that you can utilize later in life, through your qualified plans and all that kind of stuff and pensions, is that you will literally be paying taxes on a much bigger amount of money,
Hmm.
right? So the government, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, they're going to take more because you put yourself out there. Literally, in those cases, you put your money out there, and it really, for the most part, wasn't available to you. And you took all the risk and all the stress. And then the government ends up with, let's just say, the same percentage, but they're ending up on a bigger pile. So pay me now or pay me later. I mean, why would people choose to pay later?
Short-sighted thinking, or not fully understanding the ramifications of that. That would be my guess, right?
Yep. Well, yeah, I guess all of that. And I say that people, they, they don't understand that, again, this idea that if I could pay a tax once before something became much more valuable. And I use the example of you could pay tax on the land that you're going to build a house on, and you could pay a one time tax, and then you
Oh, I would love
improve,
that.
yeah, and you improve the land by adding a structure to it and all kinds of other things. And then later, as that becomes nominally a bigger number, so you only paid 100,000, say, for the land, and now the house is worth $1 million with the land. I don't know how long. I mean, let's just say it's $1 million. Now but you can draw money out of that $1 million, that equity, and never pay taxes. Never, you sell it, you never pay taxes. You just never, right? You paid it on the small amount
Hmm.
because you said, hey, I'm willing to take the hit early and then let the profits run and be all of mine, not shared with the Internal Revenue Service. And so
Yes.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the tax benefits of properly designed whole life insurance are the best that I've seen on any sort of financial vehicle. And John and I have talked about these kind of a lot, I would say, right, over previous episodes. So if you've been listening along, hopefully you've picked up some of what we've said on that. But yes, the ability to pay a dollar in, and then if utilized correctly, never ever to pay tax again on that dollar is really powerful. Um, and there are some other financial vehicles out there that do offer similar benefits in terms of qualified plans, but they don't allow current use of that money. There are restrictions on how much you can contribute to that. There are restrictions on when you can access that without penalty. The rules can change around those plans at any time in terms of the rules around when you can access that money. And those things operate within the income tax code, whereas life insurance does not. And I was watching this video the other day. Forget who this gentleman was, but it was, I'll have to send it to you, John. It was really interesting. He was, and I don't know if this is true, so it made sense to me, but he was talking about the benefits of whole life insurance and why it's this thing that not enough people know about, and it's the best place to put your money. And he said, have you ever wondered why you've seen a million commercials for term insurance, you've seen ads for qualified plans and things like that, but you've never ever seen an ad for whole life insurance? I thought about that and I said, yeah, that's right. I've never seen an ad on the internet. I've never seen an ad on TV. I've never seen a billboard talking about whole life insurance. And yet I've seen hundreds talking about term insurance. And he postulated that the reason for that is because the government can't make any money off those things because the people are paying into those with, income that's already been taxed, and they never see that money ever again. Often intergenerationally, right? Because once that builds up and someone passes away, it moves on in terms of a tax free death benefit. And I thought that that was a really interesting insight on his part.
Yeah. I mean, it's foundational to infinite banking is to pay your taxes on the seed, not on the
Yes.
harvest. And I just would like people to sit with that thought, sit with it, contemplate it. Don't just hear it and then move on. Literally think about the only benefit that you get by deferring your taxes is that there might be a little bit of extra cash in your pocket, meaning because you paid the amount of taxes is on a smaller number, right? Because you were able to take a certain chunk, say with your 401k, your
Mm-hmm.
IRAs, and pull it off the table. Let's say 100,000, take out 10. Now you're only, instead of paying taxes on 100, you're only paying it on 90. But that 10 is going to be taxed, and it's going to be put into all these equations that we've talked about just recently, with Social Security and Medicare and all that. But the fact is, there's no other benefit. There really isn't. There's no other benefit. I say that, even the matches that you get with your 401k, that gets eaten up in many cases. That's really like non-existent after all the fees have come out every year while you were so-called saving, but really investing. And that's the issue, is that we don't really budget for the fact that we have these taxes now. We start to budget based off of not having these taxes now. So we still spend everything, right?
Correct.
If you're gonna take the taxes off the table, um, just take them off, meaning pay them now, just pay them
Right.
and
And
be
then you
done
don't
with it.
have the uncertainty of, later, what are they going to be? I I don't contribute, I even, back when I had a W-2 job, I stopped contributing to a
Yeah,
401k because at some point, and again, this was just a personal decision on my part. It took me some time to get there, but I realized that, I was going to be subject to unknown future tax brackets, which kind of stressed me out. It was, do I contribute to Roth? Do I contribute to the pre-tax bucket? And yes, like you said, I hadn't thought about it like that. I viewed that extra money that I wasn't taxed on as money that I could spend now. Um, and I would say most importantly, I was locking my money up, so I wasn't, you know, e- even
yeah,
for that little bit of taxable benefit, I had no access to cash flow now, which is, really the most important thing there.
yeah, yeah,
And like what you said, I don't think most people are aware of the total picture in terms of ramifications about what they're going to be paying over a lifetime and that kind of domino effect in terms of taxes when they don't remove their pool of money from that equation. And I think that Brian Bloom's books, especially Capital Equivalent Value of Life Insurance, does a really good job talking about that. And it kind of paints that picture of just how devastating that can be over a lifetime. Um, and then, especially for the lifetimes that follow you, there's just going to be so much money that doesn't make it on to your kids or your grandkids.
yeah, exactly. I want I want to add a little bit to that, but also go back to this this word advice. So there's financial advice, there's tax advice. You know, um, and people think of their accountant as actually providing financial advice, even though they may throw the word tax advice in front of it. They're really thinking in terms of they're helping me navigate this financial world. And really, what the accountant's job is to make sure that you're following the tax laws, and that hopefully you're not overpaying, but certainly you don't want, they're signing off. If they're a CPA, they're signing off saying, to the best of their understanding, you've adhered to all the tax code, and you've paid appropriately. And
Correct.
that's, but you'll read, you'll hear constantly, right? That if you have you have some cash, they'll say, hey, you haven't maxed out your IRA contribution. You've got some cash. Go and max that out. Go put 6,000 or whatever the number is now into your IRAs. Do that, because that's tax advice. But people look at, well, like, to me, that's bleeding over into the financial advice, right? Because all you're talking about is the taxes, right? But you're telling them to use a financial vehicle, and I don't think they should be doing that,
Mm.
right? That's just trying to, again, kick the can down the road. They haven't actually reduced your taxes. Maybe they have for the short term, but they haven't for the long term. And that's considered really good advice.
Yes. And there are some groups that are more like tax strategists. I've talked to some of them before. Their strategies tend to be very short term, kind of like how can we mitigate, taxes this year or the next few years. And very few of them that I'm aware of are are utilize whole life insurance in conjunction with, the total financial picture, which always surprises me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
even they don't even know about it. They don't understand it. They think they might know something about life insurance or whole life, or the little they know, they don't know it at all, really. For the most part, I would say, high percentage don't
yeah.
really
And
even
there
understand this
definitely
is
are some
available.
that do. Right. I
Yeah,
had
there's
one that,
some, of
yeah,
course.
I had one that I talked to, and they said, hey, we've been incorporating, life insurance, cash value life insurance into our plans for a lot of people, and we sell it. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I haven't really talked to anybody yet that's known about that. And they sent me over. I didn't ask them to, because I obviously can write my own policies, but they sent me over a brochure for what they do, and it was IUL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
well, that's, again, I want to be clear. Yes, certainly there's even infinite banking concept practitioners that maybe still practice as CPAs. I'm not sure. But usually they're saying, like, I'm a recovering CPA, or as Brian Bloom's books, are titled Confessions of a CPA. He's not practicing public accounting now. He's a life insurance agent. Can he give you some guidance on the tax side? Yeah, because he knows it well. He studies it. The code changes every year. That would be financially smart to know about. But this is the thing, when I recently, why I even came up with this topic is because it rubbed me such the wrong way when, like, just the common man, someone comes back to me and says, we just finished up tax season, and then we got to meet with my accountant next week, and I sit there and go, okay, if you literally care that much about taxes, that it's so big, a big part of your life, especially, and this was a business owner that came to me and used that phrase. And as you said, they're paying quarterly. This is a constant thing, right? And it's always like it's a mystery to them. It's like a mystery. I got to meet with my accountant to see what, because this person was considering putting more money into policies.
mm,
And it kind of like, I need to sit with my accountant, so I feel like I'm on good footing when I talk with me, right? And I'm kind of like to myself, I mean, because I'm trying to be sensitive to, I understand this is the way of the world for most, but if taxes become so much of a mystery, why not take some of that mystery away? Which is, once I pay taxes on this money, right? I I can put it into these policies and I will never ever pay taxes on it again. Why wouldn't you actually uh, uh, receive this type of advice that you and I are providing, this coaching, and say, by golly, yeah, that would be great to free myself, and that someday, you know, I'll just be in retirement. I'll never have to think about it. I can take the money when I want. I can take the amount I want, and I'm not paying taxes on it. It doesn't get reported to the IRS. So it's not part of whether I'm going to pay taxes on Social Security or I'm going to pay more for Medicare or any other things that might happen. And
Yeah, and I just want to add, most people when they're thinking about most people have a accumulation view when it comes to retirement. They think I'm going to accumulate X amount and I'm going to take 3 or 4% of that a year and I'm going to live on that hopefully until I die and hopefully not run out of money. And when they think about that number, most people that I know aren't taking into account that they're going to pay taxes on a good amount of that number. So let's say they think they need 100,000 a year. Well, they're going to actually have to take out about $130,000 a year,
yeah, that's funny. That's the
because they're
exact
going to be
number I was.
paying
Yeah,
taxes on that. And
yeah.
so there's a lot of configuring there that needs to be taken into account. And when drawing from a policy, there is none of that needs to be taken into account.
Huh. I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent. My late wife, my late wife's father, Eddie, we call him. He's 88, and I just find that he doesn't. He had a government pension, doesn't worry about all this stuff, and uh, you know he. Sorry, what were we saying before? God, I'm losing my train of thought here.
The amount that we need to pay on taxes on withdrawed amounts.
Well, yeah, and this idea that we, you know, well, I guess I'm losing my train of thought on that, so I'll have to come back to it. Yes, I'm getting to be like closer to 88 myself. So, yeah, it's just that we spend so much time thinking about, uh, oh, I know what I was going to say. Sorry, everybody. Is this idea, which just happened to me, is my father-in-law told me many years ago when I was saying, geez, I'm worried about my dad. He doesn't seem to have a lot of things that he wants to do in retirement. And, so my father-in-law is like 11 years younger than my dad. My dad has passed, but, he said, no, your mind and your body slows down. So you're thinking like, let's say I was in my 40s at the time. He says, you're thinking like a 40-year-old. That, you have this energy, you have these interests, you want to do stuff, and you do slow down. And, you don't need as much stimulation, so to speak. And I think in those terms, Doug, and I'll try to wrap this up, is that, when you get to be older in retirement, do you want to be trying to figure out all this financial stuff and
No,
strategizing and like how much can I take and like oh gosh, look at my Medicare's costing me more, or my Social Security now I got to go get a part-time job, but even that ends up hurting me on the other end, so I'm making a little bit more, but they're taking a piece of what I was getting because I paid into the system. But oh my gosh, like no, if your body and your mind doesn't mean you're getting stupid, like forgetting stuff that you start saying. It just means you don't want that much, like study. You don't want to be, you might want to read, you might want to do that, but you're not like trying to like, always strategize. I mean, you've been strategizing over your money probably your whole life.
Mm,
And now you're like, okay, I'm retired. I'm just trying to enjoy these years that I have in good health and maybe do stuff. But I don't want to be thinking about, oh gosh, what? How about if you just took the income tax thing off the table? Let that alone, sit with that and say, yeah, that would be really good, and talk to I always say, talk to some older people and talk about the
that's good advice.
financial.
Yeah.
They will give you some insight. Don't think of them as old people in the sense that they don't live in the world that I live in. No, they still live in the world you live in, and they have even more insight than you can even imagine. And until you sit and talk with them, and they'll be much more frank than they would have been when they were chasing the American dream too. They'll tell you how this is all played out and what things worked and what things didn't work. And yeah, so
Good advice, John. I
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I mean, we don't, and including me, we don't do it enough because there is this wealth of information that is just all around us from the wisdom of other people's lives, experiences, and it could be really, really helpful if we're humble enough to just say, hey, this makes sense. They've lived a life. They've lived all these years that I'm planning and hoping to live myself. And yeah, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Don't be ashamed. Don't be shy. Share what you're doing, what you're thinking about doing, um, what's worked for them, what it's like to be retired on fixed income, and all that. Just,
Right.
I think they'd be willing to. Many are willing to share.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's some good homework for me. I'm going to do it, John.
Awesome. Well, then,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to hear. Yeah, at some point the results, and I'll do the same. I'll share what I find when I talk to people. So
Cool. Sounds good.
sounds good. All right, I think we'll keep it brief. We've kind of covered this topic, or at
Yeah,
least for now.
sounds good. Yeah,
At
at least for now.
least for now. All right. Well, you have a great day. Have a great week, everybody. Thank
Yeah.
you for listening, and we'll talk with you next week.
Until next time.
Okay. See you, Doug.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the ABCs of IBC.
If you enjoyed listening, please hit subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen. It really helps. See you next week.
Bye.